going to go, and as many times in the past when we do these, I'm going to run away every so often and turn the shish a little bit. So let me start by seating Jen. Okay, those we go through the same ritual when you're right and the right. And then we would pour the wine, so we have nothing to do in that regard. You can cross the off. Okay, and I will. We will go ahead and why don't we start with our the opening question or toast later? Toast now. Toast now. So our opening toast is always to Ava. Thanks so much for hosting these sessions. For all of your work, Ava. Those who have joined us, and for Master Don for leading the discussion tonight. Thank you very much. And then this other brother, Joe, and Kim in Melbourne, to have a fairly serious operation. So I thought the question always is whether there's anybody in the room that has something that they'd like to bring up or to consider and share. So I'll open the floor right now before we introduce Matt. Did he say anything?
We have music when we do this.
Oh, good.
You know, like, no, not this time, but next time. You know, like we, Jeopardy.
I carry it too. You're in the singing improv. Would you like to sing along that opening ditty?
The only thing we've learned in singing improv are blues songs.
We should explain to those that are in the room. Because I'm a little stiff and stayed, I started about 9 weeks ago to take an improv class at our the theater in Austin is a Zachary Scott Theater. That's the legitimate stage, and that class is an improv. So I've been Improv 101. May or may not have done anything. Tried to tell. Learned it. And now we've just started Improv 201, and then just taking improv singing 1.
Because like they were having.
Oh, yeah. Our classrooms are next to one another. So we've got the singing and the improv. The singing class always sounds as though it's having so much fun that we'd like to go join them. I don't at all, but Jen does, so she's in that one. I'll introduce Master Don. I'm going to go out and turn the shish kebabs a little bit while starts the conversation. Master Jen and I are on a series of books called the Power Exchange Books series.
We
restarted this series. Everything sort of went to hell in a handbasket when I moved to Panama for a year in 2009. We're trying to pick up the pieces. Master Don expressed an interest in putting together a Power Exchange book series on in the MS process. And also with some the authors speak about age differentials. In case in mind, we have a 20 age spread, and how that might play into your MS dynamic. So, Jen, then, did you discuss your conversations with me?
Okay.
All right. Well, Don stepped up and said he was interested in editing that, and working with a number of writers on that topic. And his writers are all due to get the manuscripts to him in about 4 to 6 weeks. So I had the advantage of reading into some of these talks with the writers.
The topic idea.
It was Master Don's topic idea, and so I would like to now turn the mic over to Master Don. So go ahead, please.
I hope everyone hear me all right. I would like to welcome everyone for attending this evening. And thank you to our hosts, our wonderful hosts, for allowing us to discuss this topic, which for many of us is a very, very timely topic. And I hope that the book is going to provide people of our age bracket, whether you are very young and your partner has a great age disparity, or both of the people in your relationship are of, I hate to use the word advanced age, but to me, anyone over the 40 or 50-year bracket is a lot than the 20-something-year-old master-slave relationship, so that we can sort of or what we're talking about this evening. But thank you very much for the opportunity to bring the topic out into the open. I continue on since Dr. Bob has stepped off to turn the shish kebabs or however else. So if anyone does have any questions, go ahead and hit the raise your hand button. We can see what exactly is out there and about. I am new to that we are using this evening, so if you have a question, your hand is out, and I don't happen to see it. Hopefully someone else, perhaps Jen, will let me know that we have a question out there. A lot of things going on. Of us are getting older. Our bodies are telling us quite a bit of things. Some of my chapters that are going to be included in the book is changes. You know, what changes are going on in your body, what changes are going on in your relationship. Sometimes people's tastes completely change from the beginning, from when you start out in the dynamic, whether you are the dominant or whether you are the submissive, whether you're the master or the slave, just have a tendency to change. We're going to talk things, some to say are very necessary but unpleasant things, such as what happens when one of your partners passes on, and how do you deal with relationship, or you're both so the dynamic. That's coming in forms. This is very years for both I and my partner. That my girl and I have a number of friends, people that we have known and people that we have individually or as a couple have passed away, and we just got word this morning that a longtime practitioner, a friend of us who was in the master slave lifestyle, passed away from colon cancer. It is a very difficult thing to understand. It's a very difficult thing to accept at times when a lot of people that you know in your younger, more peaceful day lifestyle, life begins to interfere. Some of us begin to get sick. Some of us begin to, the lifestyle begins to take a turn. It doesn't necessarily have to be a turn for the worse, but things do change. And hopefully some of you who are in the audience this evening as part of this discussion can chime in with either questions or comments as to how things may have changed in your dynamic from when it first started. So please feel free to kick in at home.
Madam, can you tell us how this topic came to be? How you decided that this was where you wanted to focus all of this time?
That is another question. I appreciate you offering it. The topic, the reason why I had Dr. Bob and yourself concerning doing a book on this for part of the Power Change series is the fact that both, obviously for those of you who may not be able to see me on the camera, I do have a bit of snow on my roof and I am getting up there. But there is an age difference between both I and my slave. He is older than I am. There is about a 9-year age difference between the two of us. And we know that there is a running theme in a variety of master-slave and dominant-submissive relationships where there is an age disparity between a number of couples. For some folks, it is only a few years less than 5. The age disparities do come in. That usually seems to be between 10 and 15 years. The people who have written the article or written the chapter of the coming on topic of age disparity, there is a 17-year age gap between the master and the slave. The master is 17 years older than the slave. So he is presently in his 70s. She is in her, I don't know the ages, obviously most women don't know that, but somewhere between the 40s and 50s, we shall say. To hold that to be true without throwing them out. The age disparity does have a number of things that has its own intricate ways of, let's say, for the relationship. I came into it to answer your question because there are some issues. There's cultural issues, there's issues, and there are physical issues when the partners are not in, a 5-year of age between each other that need to be looked at and addressed, and that's what's spurred me to start to invest and look into things. I'm like, we can't be the only couple that there is age disparity, and come to find out, our age disparity is really nothing. 9 years is nothing for many couples. For some of them, 10 years. For some of them, 15 years. For some of them, 20 years or so. So, I mean, does that mean that there can't be a relationship? Absolutely not. What calls for is creativity, open communication, and respect for each other. And utilizing those tools is a springboard for a foundation for making a very successful relationship.
If we start at the very beginning, the basic thing that married relationship has to do with, regardless of the age spread, but just an aging issue. We're talking about health. We're talking about having access to your partner in the hospital if you're not married, and setting up things like that. Is it a legal question that you have covered in the book, or you may have? I don't know. I haven't been able to see how this is coming together. Do you have any answers for that?
In fact, I do, and the reason why I do is because of my own master-slave relationship. My slave, I am not her first master, and her previous master had passed away. A very wise and considerate man, he made sure that his slave would be taken care of. They were in a very long-time master-slave relationship, and because of her, and because of the trials and tribulations and things of going on with her previous relationship, I began to investigate what were some of the alternatives that masters and slaves who were not married, so they weren't recognized by the social norms that are out there under the tenets of marriage, what kind of provisions, what kind of protections can be done for slaves. So I have an entire chapter that is written by a friend of mine who is both a master as well as a CPA, which gives an outline of to think of for providing for your slave if you are the master or the mistress. Likewise, if you are the slave, normally, in master-slave relationships, the master normally likes to and provide or take care of the slave. And it's interesting because historically, it's the master or the mistress who is normally older than the slave. In regards to my relationship, the slave is older than I am. But does that mean that I am free to provide or make provisions for her? Absolutely not. Because, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, we have a magic 8-ball that's going to tell us when, we may step in front of a bus. So as such, to provide for one's property, and if we view our slaves as our property, to take provisions to provide for them is very important. And because many of us are not married to our slaves because we may have either a which state you or country you reside in, they may not recognize the alternative lifestyle that we live in. We need to take some legal precautions to provide for them as well as to provide for us. If we have them in our eyes as being able to take care of us, we capacitate it for whatever reason, medical reasons, sickness, whatever. We need to basically provide the legal paperwork, the legal trail, the legal powers that society outside of our lifestyle will recognize our partner, and I'll use that term partner, although power exchange relationship, we may not view them as partners, but I'll use them as folks. We need to say, to specify for them legally whether it is in a power of attorney, a limited power of attorney, or whether it is in a situation that our partner does have the ability to step in for us and make decisions when we are not able to, whether it's because we have passed on and we have died, so we have a will, or whether we have a living will, which in the medical emergency, they can step in and make decisions for us because we trust them and we have established that type of relationship. And we have an entire chapter in the book that will focus on that and actually lead the reader through different scenarios as well as give them guidance with some legal writing that is, but it's something that you can take to the legal representative of your own state to say, hey, take a look at this and reword this because this is what I'm looking for.
Good. The other thing that when I was taking Mr. Stevens' class at Master Slave Conference, and something that came up in relationship with Bob early on is the emotional needs that a master slave couple may have during illness, especially if master is ill. That when it happened in our relationship, Bob screaming to me, "Please leave, please leave," and I just couldn't. So setting up protocols, setting up a way of being where master can step in, where slave can step in and over. And Sir Stephen was saying it happened in his relationship. We were at Manila, and I'm sorry, I lost. But there was a master there who happened in his relationship, and his slaves were taking care of him. So it seems to be something that happens regardless of age. Just being prepared for those situations.
Somebody know Master Guardian, Las Vegas, where he went into a relationship and she became really bad. So it's there's really dramatic changes that can occur. In any case, on a fairly light, since neither of us are fortunate, have something called Rule 1, which is Master's right. 2 is that I have the authority to take over if she were to be ill, or a judgment enough so that her judgment's impaired. So we already have the exchange process in place that accounts for after becoming ill. I'm interested whether anybody else that's in the room has worked out methods in their own relationships for dealing with illness. That should say something.
Well, if some folks are gathering their thoughts to add to this, I can tell you from my own research and my own input for the book that anyone who has been in any kind of a master-slave relationship for any prolonged period of time where illness has faced this, and quite frankly, the two people who have contributed to my what I call the kickoff chapter, the very first one to help introduce this, is Master Steve and his slave Tammy from the Northeast, and they were master-slave title holders years ago or so, and both of them have gone through a tremendous boring issue of medical issues. Master Steve had issues with his back, and his own slave had some very critical health issues, and both of them have faced that very same question. And appreciate that because I and my own slave have had those same types of questions that have arisen. My has had in the past few years a number of medical challenges, and up to very recently, some of you who may have seen us at the Master Slave Conference may have seen me pushing her around a wheelchair because only a few short weeks she was involved in a horrendous automobile accident, which required her to have some extensive surgeries concerning her leg, her hip was fractured. So these are things, when a couple who are in the lifestyle, such as the slave dynamic, performance and ability to perform one's roles is a very critical issue. It's a critical issue. And whether the master or the slave is due to medical or some life issues that affect the health, the first thing that pops in their mind is, oh no, can I be able to perform the duties of my accepted role? A master sits there and goes, can I, if I'm laying in bed, can I, provide the guidance and the direction that my slave or my household needs? The slave may sit there and go, if I'm flat on my back, am I going to be able to perform for my master? And that's when dialogue and the open communication is at its most critical. A master can be flat on his bed, and yet can still direct from the bed. The slave can be in bed recovering, and if the master comes in and says, you know what, you obey me, and you will please me in your obedience by doing what I say. And as Mr. Steve illustrated, by giving instructions, and I've given the same instructions to my own slave. Keep yourself in this bed and recover for me and provide the most ample opportunity for a successful recovery, and you will be pleasing me. That is no different than you kneeling at the door when I get home from work. So having information is very real. Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I wanted to just, we're a little bit of a transition period, and I wanted to recognize Master Tenure, who has her hand up. Go ahead, Master Tenure. What's blood family objects and is to overrule? And Master Tenure doesn't have a mic, and she was to me privately.
She could keep her mic.
She doesn't have one. Okay. If we could answer that, Master Tenure's question, what happens if your biological family objects and tries to take over?
Now, excellent question. Of course, I don't have the particulars. When we say biological family, are we speaking about children or are we speaking about a spouse? That obviously needs to be addressed through the legal system of that particular person's court. Obviously, if the either participant, whoever the blood family is, if they are still active in that person's life, then these are things that need to be addressed beforehand. No different than a living will. If a living will stipulates that you have given X amount of authority to, and let's say it's your slave, or let's say it's your master, whoever the person is in the lifestyle, then the courts will have to go ahead and recognize that. Now, if a blood relative, let's say a brother, a parent, or a child intervenes and says, I differ from whatever the opinion of the appointed person is, it's up to the person who is incapacitated to have all the in a row ahead of time, specifically legally. They will need to specify with a lawyer, have it notarized and recognized by the courts that my person, my appointed person, whether it is my master or my slave, and we don't need to identify them as master or slave because obviously that's going to bring in some things, but even biological people can be, for the most part, overruled if you some ahead of time by saying, videotape. If you videotape and leave a videotape saying, listen, in the event that I am incapacitated, beyond a shadow of a doubt, now that I am coming to you of clear mind and conscious, and I am telling you that this person, even though maybe their slave or their master, but I'm recognizing my partner having due diligence authority to make decisions on my behalf, and whether you are a blood relative or not, I'm telling you, I'm asking you to respect their wishes. I'm asking you to respect my wishes. And their word and their decisions as they come to me. That will have a lot of weight in the legal system. So going ahead and having that type of preparation laid at a time will hopefully negate any type of conflict or challenges. But it's not impossible for blood relatives to step into a legal arena, get attorney, confront a judge, and the judge to intervene. These are the facts of life. And whether we're in a lifestyle or not, that can happen at any time. I mean, very good Hollywood based on just such things.
Thank you, Master Tandir. Did that answer the question? You can speak and go ahead.
Unfortunately, little legal skittish, because if, we may have this partner who has many years who have seen us through all of our life and know us better than a blood relative. They are our partner. Really, no matter how you look at it, you build life together. You have that I'll use the word of all a blood relative has to do is say, you're kinky, they were doing this, to sully a judge, to sully your last wishes, basically. And it's got to be, I would think, understanding between you and your partner that they have every they have a wish to fight, to step to it.
Actually, I agree with that. I have a question.
And Phoenix has a thing.
Phoenix, go ahead, Phoenix.
Continuing on what Master Don said, we had this year an occasional meeting for one of our groups where we had a lawyer, we had a notary, and we did exactly this topic. And basically, durable powers of attorney, both legal for estate affairs and for medical, you can have a durable power of attorney with your dynamic partner with having to say it's a master slave or whatnot, and they do not have to be your spouse. For example, my husband is my medical power of attorney and legal power of attorney should something happen to me. But also my slave is on my hospital contact list, is one of my emergency contacts, and in time we probably will have him also as a secondary power of attorney for me in case my husband does for me. And also, financially, you can list whoever, whether they're blood relations or not, as a beneficiary on insurance contracts and retirement accounts and whatnot, and they don't have any say in who you name as a beneficiary. So that is a way to protect yourself against the biological family coming in and trying to assert their wishes and push your dynamic partner aside. The only problem I've ever really seen where biofamily usually trumps anything else, and this can also be legally spoken in a will as far as your final requests and arrangements for burial and or cremation, is that many times a family will want their loved one buried with them or in a family plot or whatnot. And I have seen in the lifestyle that is one disconnect is that normally you don't see lifestyle going to the memorial services with the family, we usually have memorial services in the community for our friends. Sometimes the burial is more of a family affair, especially if a person is younger and is survived by parents or whatnot. So that is a sticky issue because you don't want to the family of saying goodbye to their loved one in a way that they wouldn't be comfortable at the service either.
That's very good. My question, Mr. Don, I'm wondering whether anyone included this next topic in the book, your essays. Question is, okay, you are in an MS structure, and you not live together, and you die alone, or the two of you die away from the house suddenly, car crash, rain. Has anyone discussed a house and getting all of the toys out of there before a biological family access to the property to cover the kink toys?
That is an excellent question, and it's actually, obviously growing older myself, that's actually a discussion that we have had amongst friends.
Hello, Mr. Don.
I'm going to say why.
You may not be out for the family. The question is, well, that's a good point. You're gone, so you don't care if your family discovers that you're kink toys.
What are they going to do? How does this? I guess I have. I know. Let's not again. I know I have a different way of looking at the world than people, and people think of me, affect me, but it would affect me even less if I were gone, if I were dead. And then the question, then you get me on my soapbox, and why would they think different of me now all of a sudden that they know these things? Oh gosh, I've got to get off this soapbox. I could feel myself get upset. But you're talking about not hurting other people. Like that. I get that you're saying have to come in and stand the house so that so they are not hurt and that they get to carry their happy memories on.
Did the authors address that, Mr. Don?
Am I coming across? Okay. None of the writers who are contributing to the book have approached that subject as yet, because quite frankly, it's a very I and my are of the same thought process of Jen, which is basically you're dead, okay? But I do respect that fear that that your memories, that lifestyle, which you have thought very difficulty to keep secret from your vanilla family, or you might be someone famous and you didn't want that kind of stuff to get out. I and my slave live a very open, style is not a secret to our family. It is not a secret to our friends. We live very openly, but we do recognize and respect that not everyone can live like that. I do understand the question, but one of the, and it is not being addressed in the book, but I would like to address it here since it has been brought up, that I happen to, I'm employed in the law enforcement community, okay? So I would like to pose this back to you. I have very grave beliefs. I would dissuade anyone from doing that because, let's say, for the moment, I throw this hypothetical situation up. Dr. Bob lives by himself, but obviously he is in a relationship with Jen. You do not cohabitate, but you have a fear that if it's exposed that your lifestyle comes about when you pass away, you have an arrangement for Jen to run in as soon as word comes out that you have passed on to go and clean everything out. If you and Jen are not married, there's the risk of going in and from biological or vanilla family saying that she took things from the house, she was seen in the house, and that will now put Jen, and you're now dead. So who is going to protect Jen from removing things from the house? You are not married. Your biological family has, perhaps they don't even know anything about Jen. Here this stranger has gone in the house and is witnessed is removing things. We do protect Jen.
So actually consider that.
Well, if you can, if there's some way of inserting anything like that into the book, I would encourage that.
I'll take a look at that and see if I can put that here. Obviously, because the book is still a work in progress, but we are nearing the completion. It doesn't mean that we can't have a few pages that address such a thing. So that is an excellent question, and it is something to do, because the whole purpose of the book that I want the book steered from is to do nothing but provide food for thought, food for discussion, things that an MS couple think about and discuss, ooh, this works for us, ooh, that doesn't work for us, because we can't encompass every type of different MS dynamic that is out there. I mean, just like Star in the Sky, every MS completely different with unique challenges. So.
For consideration, Master Don, you could write an epilogue.
Absolutely. Okay.
Your hand up again.
Go ahead, Phoenix Red. 10 years saying, accused.
Just typing this out. I said, I have a situation that this expression in that way. I cannot marry my boy because I am married to my husband. That would make me a bigamist, and it's legal. But if husband and I were to die in an accident together, I would certainly want something in place so that my slave doesn't have problems with, dealing with the house and whatnot. Now, part of that, I guess, could be written into a will or not, but the bio family is also going to be part of the will. His family, my slave's family, nor my family knows that we're in a poly-living arrangement. And part of that is because my slave has 3 children and doesn't want his lifestyle known to them in that way. So, yeah, that you're going to have that usually. What I would suggest with that is having an executor of the will that is lifestyle friendly. It's a family member.
Well, I have no legal background, although I do have a lot of criminal justice background, Master Don. Most of my career was with the research division of the Justice Department, but it was school crime prevention. But I would wonder whether there was some kind of simply a testamentary, a notarized testamentary document that said, look, folks, here's the way it is, here's who this person is. Give them some standing to get to the point of a will, because a will is way down the line after you die. That's not happening in real time. That's going to happen in some weeks after a death, and that's going to you want to consider some kind of document. God, what kind? If there's an attorney in the room, would be a delight. Now, a kind of document that says, look, this is my partner. They have this kind of authority within my home apartment and my life. Any comments on that, anybody?
I'd like to comment on that just briefly. There is the beauty of the fact of the will, and the whole thing is taking prudence and doing it ahead of time so you can basically avoid any types of complications. The question that I would like to pose to address this particular question would be to simply, what it can have multiple executors or executrixes to your will. There is no reason why you cannot have a biological family member and having your lifestyle family member both as co-executors or executrixes to your will. As such, if you're going to identify that, your family members don't need to know the reason why the lifestyle partner has to be identified if it's such a, if it's secret to them. So what you do is you call whoever you're going to have as your executor or executrix to your will. Let's go to a diner one day so you all get to meet, and you have it stipulated in the will that the executors will have access to your property at the event of death. Okay, so once you have been declared dead, and if you want your lifestyle partner, just say, this is my friend. At the time of my death, I have things that my friend will handle, and I will have things that my biological family member handle. And you both you're co-executors of my will. And there are things that my friend, I want them to take care of that may be business assets or personal assets, and my biological family member will see to it that they will represent my biological family issues. Because all these things can be talked about, obviously, ahead of time. If you get somebody to meet ahead of time, they don't need to know what the intricacies are of your relationship. They just need to know this is mine, and it is my last wishes that my friend is part of my will process, to the point where I want them to have an authoritative administrative power in handling of my assets once I pass on. And that's all I know. Talk about it to be revealed. And of course, I would like it stated for the record that obviously I am not an attorney. Seek the input of your local attorney who will be handling this thing for you. Get their input as well. God knows you're going to be paying them a buttload of money for their advice. Ask them about these as well, because I guarantee, since I know a lot of legal professionals who are also in the lifestyle, they're not hearing something that is totally off the wall anyway. So get their input, and their input is confidential to you. So take a little bit of care in that.
Go ahead.
Point of information question. I'm not sure I exactly know the answer, but I'd like to throw it out there for discussion. We've already about the master providing for the slave. In some cases, the slave has the better income or the better job or whatnot. As property, technically, I know in many relationships, the master would be in charge of the slave's finances. And I set that up early, like make them have a savings account and whatnot to help them provide for themselves in case anything happens to the master. But what if the slave dies? Does the master? What I'm trying to figure out is we approach a lot of things from the master taking care of the slave standpoint, but what role after death would the master have in regards to the slave's bio family and what they find out and what they don't and what the finances are and this and that? Many of these things can be figured out legally between the two partners and whatnot, but this kind of addresses, again, the bio conflict with others in the family, or have a spouse or this or that. But we always talk about the master providing from the slave, but what if it's the other way around and the master goes first? And how do you take over if the slave goes and was the primary breadwinner of the family? Does the slave have an obligation to help leave in their wills to provide for the master?
I think that relationship specific, and so if you did have a slave who was the breadwinner in a relationship, then it would be up to that person and relationship how that was going to play out.
My response would be that this is another section that Master Don may want to consider in the book, which is almost a checklist of legal/financial topics for Master to at least consider structuring the MS relationship. And this is
from the beginning.
From the beginning, this has never dawned on me before, frankly. So where you're saying, okay, you need a power of attorney. If you're going to follow this path, then your power of attorney would say A, B, and C. Will would say A, B, and C. The way, if you don't have a will, here's the link to LegalZoom.com or something.
Absolutely correct. and I really don't, although it is a very timely topic, and it's a very important topic, I obviously don't want the financial aspects and the aftercare of if one passes on or health to dominate everything. But I do want to stress that really, ladies and gentlemen who are here listening in on this conversation, the key here is to sit and talk with your partner ahead of time. Have these discussions with your partner at a fixed point because quite frankly, anything can be pretty much created. Anything can be created legally. Okay, we advent and to the homosexual community who, same-sex marriages and same-sex Bill of Rights and things like that. That has made things tremendously easier for all of us who live in an alternative lifestyle. But really, it comes down to speak with your partner, speak with your master, speak with your slave. Like I said before, each and every one is completely different. So what is indicative to your particular relationship, where you would like to go ahead of time, and then seek the legal counsel afterwards, and that's the best bet to go. We will incorporate checklists, things to think about and discuss. Definitely all good things, but looking out for yourselves and your own relationship ahead of time to what will work, and then going to seek the legal counseling, the financial counseling, that type of thing afterwards, it will really help to solidify what your goals and plans are.
Speaking on Phoenix Red, I want to respond to Master Tandir, and then Master Jen has a question she can bring up. In terms for Master Tandir, who said, does anyone have experience with military legal issues? Any of you who be in touch with a female colonel who has experience in that area because of her own difficulties, please write to me separately. I'll ask the person about giving out her contact with you. She's frequently in our room, and she's not here tonight. And so, yes, and try Russ, whom I had mentioned, able to help with that. So, Mr. Tandir, if you would write to me and remind me, I'll put you in touch with, you try anyway, but I'll put you in touch with the person in Washington, D.C., who's a colonel.
My question takes us down an emotional path. Something that in our slave book is setting up relationships, and it flows into this conversation is having somebody in the lifestyle that can step in when specifically master has that, because a lot of times Steve is from what I've heard lost about the guidance, and it's also the invisible color thing that I've spoken with you about, and needing somebody to then reclaim themselves when they put everything that they've had into a relationship. And so we take that and then turn it into a aging relationship is for an elderly, a master who is older, the inevitable of master go slave of setting up a support for slave.
Let me think out loud for a moment along those lines and wonder whether NCSF, along with their king-friendly professionals, might be, whether Susan Wright might be interested in discussing setting up a resource network for, particularly for slave survivors, masters. I know her well enough to ask that. Does anybody else know Susan well enough to contact her about that?
Have any other
or any other suggestions about that? Yes, we know you have your hand up. If anybody has any thoughts about how one might set up a national support network Dan as a branch of NCSF, I'd love to hear about. The community, I understand that it has to be a community level, but I wonder whether there might, in the same way that you have a national safe call center, a national, some national center in the case of death of a kinky partner. Does anybody have any other suggestions? And as a question.
We'll address that very briefly, and sorry if I'm stepping in on anybody right here, but and with interest in that regarding my own slave and what occurred when she lost her master, there are a tremendous lifestyle change. Obviously, if you've been enslaved for many years and it was a long-running relationship, and then all of a sudden the leading force leadership of the relationship goes away, you can find yourself, besides the normal psychological issues of loss and grief, then there is also the loss and grief of master leadership that goes along with that. Sometimes I do know that there have been masters who were able to foresee or foreplan such an event, whether they knew of advanced sickness or just they took it, they were prudent enough to speak with another master, say, I need you in the event of my passing to step in and give some sort of guidance. In regards to my own, there were two masters, two dominants that were in our local lifestyle community who provided guidance to a particular point, whether it was simply protection to when you would go out to munches and things like that would oversee and sort of give a hand of protection. But those can and usually are best held at local community level. Now, granted, we are from the Northeast. We live in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. It's a large metropolis. The style community is very active and very communal. I mean, we have a very and powerful local community with a lot of leadership here. So that's very amenable to that type of situation. You go to some parts of the country, some parts of the world, where the master lifestyles community is very secretly, and there's not an availability of that. So maybe having a national network is good in that regard. But I would always turn to people first. Obviously, know them, and you can have a trust in them. So that is something I would say that a master or a mistress should seek out ahead of time to hopefully provide as another asset care of their slave. Recommend that.
Yeah, Jen, actually, this goes to what you were just saying, and I'm kind of of two minds to this, and wanted a little clarification on you're about slaves having more of a problem, although I believe that masters, if they lose a slave, have just as much of an adjustment issue to go through. And when a vanilla partner dies, they have friends and family around them to help them along, but we usually don't make provisions for them. I mean, whatever their spouse left them in the will, blah, blah, blah. As a community in an alternative lifestyle, we try to help each other out along with this. But when you're talking about providing for the slave, are you talking about having the community support them as they transition from, say, a 24/7 service to be their own again, or are you talking about finding another man for them? Because I don't know if I died if my boy would want to serve. And I don't know if that would be a good thing for him to do, and it would interfere with his grieving process.
Right. No, it's more of what Master Don was talking about, is having somebody that can be a protector as they step back into the community, somebody that can guide them coming out of a 24/7 power dynamic relationship. That.
I almost look at it as people gone through this, serving as resources for others who are now going through this. I'll have to think about it.
Well, we need to
wrap up.
Find out if there was anything that we did not cover that Mastodon.
Give a one-sentence response to Master Francis. The person I have in mind, it's not the Judge Advocate General's division of the interest in it, is that he is a military officer of rank with some serious personal trauma and has a lot of experience with attorneys and concerning the area of her own keenness and her security clearance. That context that she's active duty and involved with something in real time right now. I would then open the floor. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to cover in the next 4 minutes? Resounding silence, if possible. Master, would you like to summarize in any way at all?
In regards to the particular topic which you just fielded concerning the military officer having some experience with that in the past, I would basically say that is a very slippery slope and a very sharp edge to walk on, a very fine line depending on your branch of service and how it's viewed. And today, especially, security clearances require so much stuff. And on the other hand, when I speak to people who do these types of investigations, their first thing is always, honesty is always the best policy. And the second thing is things we've never heard before. So you just own about certain things, and you hope that the investigator can understand that we're all different people. We all have different choices and lifestyles. That might be helpful. But in regards to the topic of aging in the MS lifestyle, I would like to say that coming from time, we'll talk on what happens when your relationship may, for whatever reason, dissolve after 15, 20 years. Getting back into the community, when we folks got into the community, there were only 6 types of people. There was enslaved, dominant, submissives, tops, and bottoms. Now you have things like primals and genderqueer and gender fluid and things have no clue what they are. So I mean, it's like you went from 6 to 206 types of people, but all people in the style. How do you adjust and how do you learn? These are the types of things that the book will touch on. Things are going on in our lives and changes and stuff like that. How do we adapt? How do we change? How do we treat them? What happens when we have to change protocols? So hopefully it's not going to be a be-all, end-all. What it will hopefully do is spur conversation and spur food for thought. And that as we all get older.
Thanks very much for everybody for coming. Master Don, thank you so much for co-hosting tonight. It's been a real treat.
It's going to be really great to have this book out.
Let me see. Thanks, Ken, to me for gracious hosts. Master Don, leading very thought. Yes, it's a great. I just love these weeks. I get to hear about a topic that just fascinates me, and to hear somebody once at least co-host. Anybody that's in the room today that would like to co-host, please let me know. We'd love to have you. Once again, thanks to Ava for hosting this series. It's just marvelous. I truly appreciate it.
We'll figure out how to get all that we've recorded out somehow and available.
These will all be available. I'm working.
This takes time.
It's a slow motion. We'll get it out.
Hey, wait, is that a sign of aging that it's taking us a little bit of things done?
It's a sign of work. Once again, thanks everybody, and night to all. Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for having me.